Hello, this is Haiku going through the red cards, red commons for Murders at Karlov Manor. Overall, red has some interesting flexible cards that are probably going to see some play. They're not going to be game warping, but they're going to be solid additions to the different decks. So, starting off with the Chases On. So, Chases On, unfortunately, these kind of combat tricks are not playable in Constructed Pauper. Demand Answers. This is going to be a really interesting card to see how it plays. It's very flexible, but we've gotten cards like this. Tormenting Voice comes to mind that has the discard effect, and those are obviously not playable. So what really has got to carry this card is the flexibility of either sacrificing an artifact or discard a card. So I foresee this seeing play only in Madness decks because Madness have a lot of random blood tokens to sacrifice for this part, and they can also take advantage of the discarded card. Even then, most of the Madness cards you want the enablers to be 1 mana. So Faithless Looting is the best card, but all of the blood tokens take 1 mana to activate. So I don't think Demand Answer is actually going to find a place. That list is very, very tight, and I don't think there's space for just a card that just draws 2 more cards. It might be say play as maybe 1 or 2 of just a kind of just a flexible kind of fill in, depending on if you're out of Madness cards and you have blood tokens to sack, or if you have cards in hand to discard and no way to get them out of hand. But either way, it's just kind of like a mediocre option either way, but it has to be the flexibility that carries this card. Next card is Fonus Rage. These kind of combat tricks are great and limited, but unfortunately in Constructed, they're just too much of a liability, too easy to get blown out. And then the other issue is that in the black versions of this would bring the creature back to play, where this just creates a token. Tokens are going to be super a liability right now because blue decks are going to be playing a bunch of bounce to beat slime decks. So Felonious Rage is not where you want to be. Galvaniz is going to be a solid role player for, I think it's going to be more Izzet decks, any sort of control deck, but I think it's going to be Izzet decks. So basically, if you're playing black, you have better removal than this. But if you're not touching black, then this is going to be a solid way to deal with 5 toughness creatures, or anything more than 3 toughness. This is going to be really good. So red has very easy time dealing with 3 and less toughness, but struggles with anything bigger than that. So this is going to be a nice addition to those decks. And then here's the last of the good red cards, Gear Bane Orangutan. Obviously very flexible. So just a 3 mana 2/2 with reach that destroys 1 artifact. That's actually pretty good. But then this next option to, if the opponent doesn't have any artifacts and you built your deck correctly to utilize this, you can sacrifice an artifact and get a pretty big, 4/4 with reach. I think 4 toughness is a pretty critical toughness to surpass in this format. So I think this guy is going to be a pretty good role player. I think he's going to be overshadowed a little bit. What the meta is going to look like immediately after MKM comes out. But then I think after it settles down and we figure out a way to deal with slime decks, or slime decks can't be dealt with and they get banned, on Arena, of course, I think there's plenty of ways to deal with it in Paper Pauper. This might see it play. But I think right now it's going to be a little bit overshadowed. But very cool card, emblematic of the flexibility that they were talking about when they moved to only having 80 commons per set. This is going to be a great sign of things to come. Goblin Massmaker, unfortunately too narrow. We don't have enough face down spells on Arena to really take advantage of this kind of discount. Innocent Bystander, just not playable. Just too hard to activate or to get it to trigger the death trigger. Offender at Large, too expensive. Person of Interest, this is kind of cool. So we only have a couple red cards that make stuff that has more than 1 toughness. There's the Minotaur card at 5 mana, and then I think there's this. So making 2/2/2s for 1 mana, and plus it is a creature that you can bounce. So overall, I think this card is going to be pretty interesting. I don't think there's a home right now because I think most of the red decks that are really trying to go wide are trying to go wide with 1/1s rather than 2/2s. But this might be a way for those decks to have a little bit of resiliency against 1 damage sweepers. Red Herring. This is a cool card. This is the card that I am the least sure about. A 2/2 with haste for 2 mana. That's great stat lines. This attacking each combat is not a big deal. If you end up having a big blocker on the other side of the board, you can always just sacrifice it. So if it plays well with its own ability, which is great. And being an artifact also is relevant. So this card is really competing with Batterfist, and it comes close. Batterfist is nice because it gives you 2 objects to sack for the decks that want that, where this is all in 1 package. It sacks itself. I think actually red decks prefer the two permanents to sack rather than the 1 permanent that can sack itself. So I think this is not quite there, but it's very, very close. So in the lower power down format, so instead of Historic Pauper, if we go to Explorer Pauper, if we go to Standard Pauper, this might see some play, but I think it's outcompeted in Historic, and then possibly also in those other formats as well, because Batterfist is going to be alongside of it. That's just a tempting thing to do instead of Red Herring. Rebel Braggart, just not playable, too expensive for what it does. Shock, we've seen before. And Suspicious Detonation, this is the other removal spell. Galvanize is so much better than this. 5 toughness is a real big critical threshold, dealing with terrors on Arena. And so Detonation just unfortunately not good enough, even though you don't have to pay the ward. Just 4 is comes up too short. All right, that covers the red cards. Hopefully you enjoy the red cards and have fun with the other card reviews. Bye-bye.